Following a legal settlement, the city of Boston is moving ahead with its regulation of short-term rental housing. If you're renting out your property for 28 days or less, that means you have to start by having the property registered. To tell us about the regulations and how to make it all work is our guest from Boston's Inspectional Services Department, the Assistant Commissioner of Housing, Claudia Correa. Thank you very much for being with us, Claudia.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, Claudia, talk about what people have to do in terms of a deadline to comply with this new set of regulations.
Sure, yes. Well, the actual ordinance went in place January 1st of this year. So when people talk about deadline, they're referring to the settlement that the city reached with Airbnb, which is December 1st. And that means that whoever is not registered with the city of Boston won't be able to advertise on the platform.
Now, a lot of people so far have been renting Airbnb style, at least, without really registering. They probably think, well, maybe I can keep coasting, but can they?
Well, right now, we have come across actually a lot of listings, people being listed, but with the new agreement, they won't be able to list unless they're registered with us. So that's starting December 1st. So if they don't have a short-term rental number, they won't be able to list. And in order to get one, you must qualify under the new ordinance.
Of course, another reason you have registration is if somebody in the same neighborhood thinks there's a problem and they're wondering if this is a short-term rental, can they figure it out?
Absolutely, yes. So the city has made a lot of tools available to notify the residents about the short-term rental, and one of those tools includes a website where actually the residents can go in, look up an address and see whether they're registered or not, or they qualify or not. So all this information is available for the residents.
Of course, one thing that makes Boston's regulations interesting is that you allow short-term rentals only for owner-occupants in buildings up to a certain size. So maybe we should explain a little bit about that.
Sure, yeah. So the whole purpose behind the ordinance and what the mayor tried to push for is to make sure that property owners of small units, like many of the neighborhoods around Boston, have the opportunity to take advantage of this new industry. So, but also we want to make sure that, that whoever's doing short-term rentals, they're present during the short-term rentals. We received complaints in the past from neighbors that were saying, oh no, such and such building, they're renting their house for 2-3 days, they're throwing parties, there's trash over the place. So the whole purpose behind being owner-occupied is that we want to make sure that the hosts are responsible for their properties, that they are present during the time of the short-term rental. Also, in regards to the property type, only buildings of 2 to 3 families qualify. So this is once again to make sure that the average homeowner in the city of Boston has the opportunity of being part of this industry.
Another option in short-term rental is actually sharing a room. So you're in another part of the unit. What does that person have to do?
Sure. So it's very simple. There are 3 types of short-term rentals. One of them is called the home share and limited share. The limited share is when people actually rent out their room. They do have to register as well. The home share is when the homeowner is sharing their home while they're on vacation for a month or 2. And then the third one is owner adjacent, which means that you live in your house and you can rent an additional unit in the same building. Once again, only being 2 to 3 families. But once again, yeah, people ask us that all the time. I'm only renting out 1 room. Do I still need to register? Yes, the answer is yes.
Well, one thing we know so far is that there are investor owners who've purchased properties, probably paid a lot of money for them. They've been doing short-term rentals. Now they're not supposed to. So what happens to them?
So, but once again, based on the ordinance, I mean, the whole purpose was to avoid this type of monopoly, if you call it. So now, if they won't qualify under the new ordinance. Yeah.
And I guess one option they have is that they can apply for a zoning variance. If they do that, would the neighbors get a heads up?
So right now, luckily in our ISD, we work very closely, and that means that we work with our building department, the zoning board, which is in the same location. So we're working very close in regards to giving us a heads up. Hey, we see an increase of these type of buildings looking to do some zoning changes. So we know what's going on, and most of them they still have to go through the process like everyone else, which is zoning changes requires a lot of, including community process and so forth. So they will have to go through that process if that's the case.
And we should also mention, if you register, you do have to pay a fee, or
You do, yes. For the limited share, for the one that's when you, for example, if you're renting out a room, it's $25. For the home share is when you're renting your home and you are away for a month or two, and for the owner adjacent, it's $200.
We should mention that if people want some more information, you've got some place online where they can find that?
Absolutely. So people can just go online at and visit www.boston.gov/short-term rentals. And all the information in regards to short-term rentals will be on that page.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Claudia Correa from the Inspectional Services Department. We'll have more news in just a moment.